When Cassini plunged into Saturn's atmosphere in 2017, it was meant to be the end of a story, a poetic conclusion to one of humanity's most ambitious missions. For 13 years, the spacecraft had circled that gas giant, snapping breathtaking images of rings that seemed like frozen rivers in the void, diving between icy moons, even sampling the plumes of Enceladus as they burst into space. Scientists cried when it burned up, not because they had lost a machine, but because they had lost a companion, an emissary that had kept vigil at the edge of the solar system. Everyone believed the story ended there. But sometimes endings are only beginnings in disguise. If you're still watching, subscribe now. You crave more than answers. You seek what lies beyond. Subscribe now and be part of the few who never stop searching. Because buried in those final images, those last desperate transmissions as Cassini tore into Saturn's clouds, something was waiting. Something no human eye had noticed. Something no scientist had dared to imagine. Years later, with the rise of quantum-enhanced AI, Cassini's archives were reopened. It was supposed to be routine, an exercise in machine vision, an experiment in whether advanced algorithms could find details human analysts had missed. The AI combed through thousands of images, processing light curves, adjusting for noise, reconstructing data pixel by pixel, and then it froze. In one of Cassini's final photographs, taken as the probe skimmed near Saturn's hexagonal storm at the North Pole, the AI flagged a shape, not random cloud turbulence, not chaotic swirls of atmosphere, a shape, a repeating fractal geometry, woven into the storm itself, a lattice, a symbol. The discovery was so precise, it unsettled the very scientists who had trained the algorithm. This wasn't pareidolia, faces in clouds, illusions of pattern. The AI reconstructed the storm layer by layer and found recursion, shapes within shapes, a geometry that repeated itself at scales no natural storm should maintain, like a signature written in turbulence. And then came the first crack of fear. This wasn't the first time, because when the same AI was unleashed on decades-old Voyager data, particularly from its 1980 flyby of Saturn, it found the same geometry, fainter, hidden in electromagnetic fluctuations, buried in plasma waves, a pulse that matched the rhythm of Cassini's final storm pattern almost perfectly. That meant it wasn't random, it wasn't fleeting, it had been there for decades, maybe longer. If Saturn's hexagon was only an atmospheric anomaly, then how could its electromagnetic signature echo through two separate missions, separated by nearly 40 years? The answer some whispered was chilling, because it isn't an anomaly at all, it's a construct. The AI went further, overlaying Cassini's magnetometer data with the imagery. A repeating pulse was there too. Subtle modulations growing stronger as Cassini dipped closer to the hexagon, almost as if the storm responded to its presence, almost as if it were aware. One researcher who later refused interviews described the discovery bluntly. It was like listening to breathing. And what's worse, the fractal symbol uncovered by Cassini's AI analysis wasn't unique. Parts of its geometry mirrored strange fluctuations picked up near Jupiter during Galileo's flybys, and even stranger, fragments of it resembled repeating radio bursts detected by Voyager as it passed beyond the heliopause decades later. Think about that. A pattern, a signature, woven not just into Saturn's clouds, but echoed across missions, across decades, across vast distances of space. A continuity, as though someone or something had left a mark for us to find, hidden in the chaos of nature itself. Now the real question emerges. What is it? Some argue it could be communication, an encoded message using fractals, a universal language that transcends biology and culture. Fractals are everywhere, from coastlines to neurons to galaxies. They are nature's blueprint, complexity born of simplicity. If a non-human intelligence wanted to speak to us, fractals would be the perfect medium. Not spoken language, not binary code, but geometry written into the universe itself. Others take a darker view. What if this is not communication but camouflage? What if Saturn's hexagon hides more than storm winds? What if beneath that turbulence cloaked in electromagnetic interference there is structure, a megastructure, something vast, lattice-like, feeding on the energy of Saturn's rotation? The AI hinted at this possibility when it processed Cassini's thermal data. It found heat spikes too localized to be explained by atmospheric convection, points of warmth beneath the storm, stable over time, like hidden engines smoldering beneath the clouds. engines too precise to be geological, engines that should not exist at all. And here's the most unsettling thought. Maybe we were never meant to see it. Cassini's mission was planned to avoid contamination of Saturn's moons, which might host life. That's why it was plunged deliberately into Saturn's atmosphere. But what if, in its death dive, Cassini accidentally glimpsed something it wasn't supposed to? Something ancient, something still alive. The implications ripple outward. If Saturn harbors such anomalies, what about the other gas giants? What about Jupiter's storms? Uranus's tilted magnetosphere? Neptune's erratic winds? Could they too be cloaked signatures, waiting for the right eye or the right machine to decode them? This isn't just science. It's mythology rising again from the depths. Ancient cultures often tied Saturn to gods of time, judgment, hidden rulers. The Sumerians called it Ninuta, the bringer of secrets. The Romans feared it as the devourer. Myths of watchers, veiled powers, always linked to the ringed planet. And now, in the age of machines, we uncover fractal signatures that seem to whisper the myths weren't wrong. Even NASA's own archives raise suspicion. Whistleblowers have long claimed that certain Cassini images were redacted or blurred before release, that astronauts during Apollo reported unexplainable transmissions when passing near Earth's own magnetosphere, that Voyager's cosmic music, those plasma wave recordings, contained artificial harmonics dismissed as instrument error. But with AI, error is no longer a refuge. Patterns that once slipped past tired human eyes are now laid bare in merciless clarity. And Cassini's final images prove one thing beyond doubt. Saturn is not silent. It is speaking, or hiding, or both. The scientific community, predictably, is split. Some embrace the anomaly as a natural fractal phenomenon, nothing more than turbulence amplified by mathematics. But others, the quiet minority, have stopped giving interviews. They have stopped speaking at conferences. They have withdrawn into research groups with restricted access. That silence, that sudden tightening, speaks louder than words. Because if Cassini's hidden image is what it appears to be, then the solar system is not what we think it is. We are not exploring empty planets and mute gas giants. We are walking through a gallery where something older, smarter, maybe infinitely patient has already left its mark, and perhaps is still watching. Cassini was supposed to burn up unseen, its ashes scattered through Saturn's skies. Instead, its final gift was a secret, a warning written in geometry, a revelation carved into storms. And now humanity must confront the possibility that we are not the first to explore the solar system, not the first to map it, not the first to use it. We thought Saturn was just a planet. We thought Cassini's mission ended in fire. But if these patterns are true, if the lattice beneath Saturn's clouds is real, then Cassini didn't just reveal a world, it revealed a presence. And the haunting question that lingers is not whether we found them, it's whether they've been waiting all along for us to finally notice. Saturn was supposed to be just another gas giant. A spectacle, yes, with its golden rings stretched across the sky like the brushstrokes of a divine painter. But fundamentally, it was supposed to be just physics and chemistry, hydrogen, helium, storms spiraling at impossible speeds. A world too big for us to ever set foot on, but too simple to frighten us. That's what we thought. That's what Cassini was supposed to confirm. Yet what if Saturn was never simply a planet? What if it was a stage, a mask, a machine hiding in plain sight? The revelations from Cassini's last images have cracked that door open. A repeating fractal pattern in the hexagon storm. A geometric lattice buried in chaos. A pulse that seemed to breathe when Cassini moved closer. For years we assumed the hexagon was a natural phenomenon, winds colliding in perfect rhythm. But how does nature repeat itself with mathematical precision, across decades, across spacecraft, across electromagnetic channels? How does a storm become a signal? The answer most scientists will never say out loud is the one that keeps them awake at night. Storms don't make signals. Someone makes signals. And here's the kicker. The patterns weren't just visual. When the AI enhanced Cassini's magnetometer data, it found pulses at intervals that matched human brainwave frequencies, theta, alpha. The ranges associated with dreams, memory, consciousness. That is not a coincidence. That's design. Imagine the horror of realizing a storm on Saturn is resonating with the same frequencies your brain uses to dream. As if the planet itself is whispering, reaching into you, sinking you to something vast and unseen. Now skeptics will say it's just pareidolia, human beings desperate for meaning. But that explanation collapses when the Voyager data is factored in, because Voyager 1, back in 1980, recorded fluctuations in Saturn's electromagnetic field that, when reanalyzed, contained fragments of the exact same fractal sequence Cassini revealed. 40 years apart, two entirely different spacecraft, one consistent signature. This isn't our imagination. This is persistence. Something that's been there, hiding, waiting, repeating for generations. And what if this isn't new? What if Saturn has been signaling for as long as the hexagon has existed? That storm at the pole has been raging for millennia. Could it be that long before humanity discovered mathematics, before we even lit fire in caves, Saturn was already broadcasting a message encoded not in radio waves, but in geometry, hidden in turbulence, designed to be noticed only by a species advanced enough to send machines into orbit? That possibility reframes the entire Cassini mission. Did we stumble into this, or were we led there? Was Cassini's fiery end just the closing act of a play we were never told we were part of? Consider the thermal anomalies. The AI flagged hotspots beneath the storm, localized sources of energy too stable to be natural. Some researchers quietly admitted they looked like power nodes, positioned with intent as though the storm itself were a cloak wrapped around machinery. What if Saturn's hexagon is less a storm and more a camouflage system, an engineered mask designed to look natural until someone looks closely enough to see the seams? Now you start connecting the dots, and the picture grows darker. Ancient cultures, separated by continents and centuries, all tied Saturn to something more than just a wandering light in the sky. The Sumerians spoke of Saturn as the hidden sun. The Romans feared it as the devourer, the god that consumed his own children. The Egyptians drew strange glyphs aligning Saturn with creation and destruction. Were these just myths? Or were they echoes of a truth we lost? Stories passed down from times when our ancestors might have noticed more than we gave them credit for. Because here's the question no one dares ask. How many times has Saturn already been noticed? By us, by others, by civilizations long before ours. How many probes, how many explorers from distant stars passed through this system and saw what Cassini saw in its last moments? And if they did, what did they do next? This is where the dread sets in. Because Cassini's data doesn't feel like the discovery of something passive. It feels like the uncovering of something active. Something that responds. Remember, the pulse in the magnetometer grew stronger as Cassini drew closer. That implies interaction. Awareness. The storm wasn't just a backdrop. It was an eye watching the intruder. That eye has been open for as long as the hexagon has raged. Which means Saturn may not be a planet as we know it, but a sentinel, a gatekeeper. Something vast, ancient, and intelligent, using the skin of a gas giant as cover. And Cassini, in its final seconds, peeled back the mask. The question becomes, why? Why hide intelligence in a planet? Why cloak signals in storms? One theory is simple and terrifying. Because the solar system is not empty. Because we are being watched. Because the outer planets are not lifeless worlds, but outposts, markers, machines disguised as worlds, humming quietly until a species like ours grows advanced enough to notice. And when that happens, the signal changes, the mask adjusts, the test begins. You see, the fractal pattern found in Saturn's storm wasn't just geometry. It was recursive, self-referencing, layered with complexity as though designed to evolve with the observer. Like a code that becomes more elaborate the closer you look. That's not natural turbulence. That's pedagogy, teaching, a puzzle meant to escalate, designed for minds to unwrap layer by layer, as if Saturn itself is a classroom. But classrooms are built for students, and students are tested. Maybe Cassini wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the key we didn't know we were carrying. By plunging into Saturn's clouds, by sending data in those final seconds, we may have triggered something we cannot undo. And think about this. Why did NASA decide Cassini should end that way? They said it was to prevent contamination of Saturn's moons, like Enceladus or Titan. A noble reason, yes. But what if that decision was influenced by something deeper? What if someone, somewhere, already suspected what Saturn was hiding, and Cassini's plunge was less about safety and more about confrontation? Because the data was waiting for AI to uncover it. Not human eyes, not human analysis. Only when we built machines capable of perceiving patterns beyond us did the truth emerge. Doesn't that feel deliberate? As if the signal was designed not for us as we are, but for what we would become. As if the intelligence behind it knew evolution would lead us here. Machines decoding machines, intelligence decoding intelligence. So the story changes. Cassini's end wasn't an end. It was the beginning of humanity's initiation into a truth we were never meant to avoid. The truth that Saturn may not be a planet, but a construct, a living archive, a beacon disguised as a storm. And if that's true, then the implications are cosmic. What if every gas giant is hiding something? What if Jupiter's great red spot isn't just a storm, but another mask? What if Uranus's bizarre tilt, Neptune's violent winds? They're not flaws, but features. A network of hidden sentinels stretching across the solar system, each coded differently, each waiting for a species like ours to uncover their language. The Cassini data was not a fluke. It was a key. The Voyager anomalies confirm it. The pulses confirm it. The repeating geometry confirms it. And somewhere beyond the clouds, something vast and silent is listening, waiting for our next move. We thought we were the explorers. We thought we were the ones cataloging the planets, photographing, measuring, claiming knowledge. But the truth Cassini uncovered is much more unsettling. We are the ones being cataloged. And if Saturn is the mask, then who wears it? It's one thing to imagine Saturn as a storm-wrapped world of gas and ice. It's another thing entirely to face the possibility that it's something more, something that has been here all along, hidden in plain sight, staring back at us with an intelligence so patient, so deliberate, that we mistook it for weather. That's the true horror in Cassini's final revelation. Because once you see the fractal patterns, once you recognize their precision, you can't unsee them. They aren't turbulence. They aren't chance. They aren't nature just getting lucky and sculpting geometry with mathematical elegance. No, what Cassini showed us was structure, intention, a signature embedded in the storm. And that raises a question no one wants to answer. Who put it there? Saturn, after all, is not new to our imagination. Humanity has always felt an unease with it. Ancient cultures treated it differently from other planets. The Babylonians called it Ninuta, the god of hidden wisdom. The Greeks named it Kronos, the devourer of his own children, the god who ruled before time itself. The Romans kept the same name, Saturn, and made him the keeper of cycles, death, and rebirth. Across cultures, the themes repeat. Saturn is not a world of life. It is a world of secrets. And now, thanks to Cassini, those secrets don't feel like myth anymore. They feel like design. When the AI uncovered that repeating fractal geometry, scientists scrambled to explain it away. Statistical noise, image artifacts, atmospheric feedback loops. But each explanation fell apart under scrutiny. The pattern wasn't static. It evolved. It repeated itself at multiple scales, like a hologram encoded in turbulence, and it pulsed in rhythm with Cassini's orbit. Imagine a storm that knows when you are watching. Imagine a planet that acknowledges your presence. That's what Cassini detected. And then came the comparisons. When researchers fed Voyager's old electromagnetic data into the same AI, decades-old signals lit up with the same geometry. That meant this wasn't something new. It wasn't Cassini-specific. It had been there in 1980, when Voyager swept past. And if it was there then, how long before that? 100 years? 1,000? 1,000,000? Suddenly Saturn stopped looking like a natural planet and started looking like a monument. Something ancient, enduring, deliberately persistent. Now think about Cassini's death dive again. NASA said it was to prevent contamination of Titan and Enceladus, those moons that might harbor life. That was the public story. But what if there was another reason? What if someone suspected the truth, that Saturn was more than it appeared? What if Cassini's plunge was a test, not just of science, but of Saturn itself? Push the machine, see if it responds. And it did. The magnetometer pulses increased as Cassini descended. The fractal geometry sharpened, as though the storm were amplifying itself in those final seconds. And then silence. Cassini was gone, burned in the atmosphere. But its last message, its final image, was no accident. It was a reveal. Some believe that reveal wasn't just discovery, it was invitation. But here's where it grows stranger. Those same numbers appear in ancient architecture across Earth. The Great Pyramid's dimensions encode pi and the golden ratio. Stone circles in Europe align to astronomical constants. Myths link Saturn to cycles of time, harvest, and hidden knowledge. Is it all coincidence? Or did our ancestors glimpse the same pattern Cassini uncovered thousands of years ago and weave it into their monuments and myths? If that's true, then humanity isn't encountering this intelligence for the first time. We're remembering it. We're rediscovering a presence that has been watching us since the dawn of civilization, maybe longer. And what if it's not just watching? What if it's guiding?